In this podcast, Evolution of a Human, it's supposed to be my job to inspire you to make the changes you know you want to make, and maybe even give you a few hints. But instead, I'm going to let my guests do that. Learn from their stories and the obstacles that they've overcome to be who they are today. And welcome back to part 2 with my wife.
Part 2 of many parts.
Of many lives lived.
So,
we talked about how we met.
yes, we talked about how we met. And then we talked about getting married and what that decision-making process was. And then, okay, so the story goes, right? The next part was that when I graduated, we wanted to buy a practice in Portugal.
Yes, we knew straight away, like both of us had the plan that once we graduated, we would move to Europe and basically never return.
Come back. Yeah,
it was always going to be bigger and better in Europe.
Well, yeah, I mean, so the decision to do that was not based, and we looked at Dubai.
We did.
We looked at a couple of places. It wasn't just Europe, but I think the thing for me and the reason I didn't want to stay in Australia is because, like I said before, and if Jacob puts up a photo of me, you'll see I am a brown woman, right? So we immigrated to Australia when I was 3, and I grew up in white Australia. And the thing that always sort of surrounded me was the fact that I didn't really belong there, right? So every form I fill out, I have to say that, I wasn't born in Australia, that I, was granted citizenship when I got there. Every conversation I had would be like, oh, and where are you from? And when I said Adelaide, it'd be like, no, but where are you from? Whereas, like, I never felt like Australia was where my home was. And you can hear my accent's Australian. Like, I don't speak any other languages. Like, I'm Australian. But yeah, Australia has this undercurrent of like deep racism that is just not at all acknowledged.
Or even conscious most of the time.
We've never come to terms with our colonial past. We've never understood the hurt and the pain, and we've never just said, hey, that's a thing. So when something is so subversive, when people are so ashamed of it and so unaware, and it just sits there, like, people make faux pas that they don't mean to, and people hurt, and there's a lot of microaggressions that you live with as a brown person growing up in Australia. So for me, Australia never felt like home. It is a fantastic country. It is beautiful. I love being Australian. There's a lot of good things about it, but it just never felt like somewhere that I could feel like I belonged. So I suppose the thing that drove me to go, all right, I want to leave Australia was that. And again, it's only just been recently that I've started to understand this. For me, it was just always a thing of I love to travel and I just want to, be closer to travel. But yet, deep down, it was the fact that I was searching for a place where I would belong. And I just didn't think that Australia was it. And
Fair enough.
Yeah, I knew it wasn't the UK. I knew it wasn't, Dubai. Again, I always felt a connection with the Middle East because my dad lived there growing up, and I felt a lot more, integrated and able to be there because it was so multicultural, and there were a lot of people that looked like me. There was a lot of Sri Lankans, a lot of Indians. The Arabic people have the same sort of skin tone as me, and I was treated and looked at differently in Dubai than I was in Australia. Yeah. So growing up, I used to visit
differently
there.
As in more accepted, more...
Yeah, just a thing of like, no one belongs here, Dubai is so artificial, like no one is from Dubai, So it's like, so when people ask you, where are you from? It's
because they ask every single
because everyone
person
doesn't belong there, you know what I mean? So like, we're all travelers coming through here, it's not like there's a very different, and this is the thing, we've talked about this a lot, the fact that you and I like have very, very different experiences in the world. Mm-hmm. And when you say to a white person, hey, when you ask someone where do you come from, like that's hard for us as brown people, right, who are Australian. And there's, oh, no, but I don't mean anything bad by it. And I'm just curious. And I get lectured on it all the time by white people of why that I shouldn't be bothered by it. But if I speak to another brown person, I don't have a lot of brown friends, but if you speak to another brown person, like they will echo the sentiment.
It's a thing.
I cannot tell you why, but that makes me so uncomfortable because, like, I don't feel like a fellow person to you, you know? Like, I don't feel like a fellow Australian. So there's a lot of reasons, but that was one of the biggest ones. I think I really wanted to leave Australia. So funnily enough, we had reached out to a bunch of people saying, hey, we want to leave Australia and we want to be chiropractors overseas. And hey, what does everyone have? What does everyone know? What's going on, right? And someone had messaged and said, hey, I know of someone selling a practice in Portugal.
Yay.
And we were like, I was like, Portugal. Now, my mother's maiden name is Dias, Dias, and that's Portuguese. So I've since learnt and talked about a little bit that my grandfather on my mother's side, his family was Portuguese. So he had her aunties growing up always dressed in the Portuguese garb. Yeah. Like they spoke a dialect of like Portuguese and Sri Lankan, like in Sinhalese together. Like there's a lot of Portuguese words in Sinhalese language. A lot of culture that's Portuguese, right? The Portuguese lived and ruled Sri Lanka and colonized Sri Lanka for hundreds of years. Anywho's. So when someone said, oh, Portugal, we were like, Portugal, we never thought of Portugal. And so we came. And we came on holidays here and we took out, we were students, we took out loans.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how.
My first year out of uni, not making much money at all.
I don't know, exactly. I don't know how we made that happen. But we flew from Melbourne to London, stayed with my family in London for a little bit, and then flew from London to Faro, the Algarve. Got picked up at the airport by this woman and she was like, come stay with me, let's have a look, like see if you like it. Now, it was at the other side of the Algarve to where we live now. It was in Cavuero, like Cavuero, Ferraguda area that's
gorgeous.
It's stunning.
Absolutely gorgeous.
And it was stunning. And we got there and I was just like,
holy crap, this is it.
Oh my God, this is it. Like we should be here. This is it. This is where we're going to live. And we were doing all the paperwork and we were doing all the things, meeting all the clients. And it was like, you know, starting to learn a little bit of like a couple of Portuguese words. Like we were just...
meeting the staff.
Yeah.
Like, the lady selling the practice really showed us a good time that week. She took us around. I think she was pretty much a week of holidays for her.
Yeah.
I think she had 2 shifts.
She had a couple of shifts and we went and we observed and we talked to people and stuff. But she spoke
she drove us
barely
around
any
to
Portuguese.
Beautiful towns, great restaurants.
Oh, we ate and we sat on the beaches and we were just like, yeah, this is it. This is where we're going to be. Yeah. Anyway, came back home to Australia and we were literally, I think it was, I don't know what day it was, but it was like a weeknight and we were just about to go to the bank the next day to sign all the papers. We had been in talks with, with accountants and lawyers and it was all together. We got the contracts. It was all fantastic. About to get a loan. And we literally got an email from her saying, hey guys, I didn't tell you, but I've been actually in talks with other people and I've sold the practice. Another Australian couple
has bought the practice.
I've sold it to them. So thanks, but
no thanks.
Thanks. It's all off.
And I think that was about 2 weeks before your final exams as well. Like it was getting quite late in the game for your final exams.
It really was. And we'd already said no. We'd already said we're not going to extend the lease on our apartment. You know, we'd started selling our stuff.
Yeah,
it was
we were
exams,
moving. We were
like
out.
We were in the process it was devastating. Absolutely devastating. Like I think I cried for like 2 days straight. It was bad.
But in those 2 days, now Facebook was, I don't know, a year or two old. Like
it was new.
we were on it.
It was new.
But it wasn't as big as,
I
it
remember
got.
when Facebook started. Yeah, that's us. Yeah.
And we put it out on Facebook. We're like, right, looking for jobs, anything for chiropractors in Europe.
Yeah, I know.
We've had something fall through.
I remember
what is out there.
I remember you were typing and I'm just sobbing and going, okay, I suppose we'll try something. Like we need another plan.
And so a chiropractor who is also from Ballarat, my hometown, went to the same school as me, who was at university at the same time as us, but a couple of years ahead. He messaged back within 24 hours saying, oh,
Oh, it's like an hour. No, it was
I've
like
got a
an
friend
hour.
who
Just left her
works
job.
in a practice. They need chiropractors. He put us in touch.
Yes, and I think it
And
was within a day.
Within 48 hours easily.
We had
We
jobs.
had spoken to the chiropractor in Dublin, and it was a done deal.
Yeah.
So we went from within 48 hours of the whole Portugal plan falling through.
Yeah.
It was, we're going to Dublin on New Year's Day.
Yeah. So between me still grieving and crying about not moving to Portugal, trying to sell our stuff, studying for final exams, and being changing our idea of, okay, we'll be moving to Dublin. I'm like,
Of all places.
that.
Cool.
I'd never been to Dublin.
But why were we leaving Australia?
But we were leaving. I was just discussing why I was leaving Australia.
Well, we moved to another very white place. But my name, Brady, very Irish. So my heritage is Irish, Scottish, English. So it was almost like a homecoming for me instead.
Yeah.
Which, first time that we had both together got rid of everything and left it all behind for something new.
Yes. So, was it New Year's Day we moved?
Pretty sure we landed on January the 1st.
God.
We landed on January the 1st.
Yes.
And we were told that, all right, Dublin, winter. It's going to be really cold.
It's going to be cold, but it won't
doesn't
snow.
snow. No. It doesn't snow in Dublin. It was about an inch or two thick on the ground.
But yeah.
When we left the airport.
Again, I remember it was, we sent a couple of boxes because we didn't have many belongings then. We sold pretty much everything.
Pretty sure we sent
We sent probably 2 or 3 boxes.
chiropractic textbooks and things that we thought were going to be really important to our career.
Yes,
as
and
chiropractors.
And our degrees.
Yep.
I don't even know what my degree is now,
No,
actually.
that's
I think
lost.
it must be in a box. No, I think they're in boxes back in Australia. I should probably...
The things we think are important at the
Things that I
time.
think are important at the time. Don't know where my chiropractic degrees are. It's somewhere. But yeah, I remember. Yeah, I remember now. And I don't remember leaving Melbourne, actually. But what I do remember is as soon as we took off from... Was it Abu Dhabi? Because we stopped somewhere in the Middle East. As soon as we took off, I had a massive panic attack. And I just couldn't breathe. And I sobbed and I cried. And they had me sitting in one of the jump seats. And you would just keep coming back and checking on me. And I just was catatonic. Staring into space and crying and just being I don't think I want to do this now. And you're like... So, here's the thing. We are in the air, in a plane, and when we land, we are in Dublin.
There.
We're there. We've moved. And I'm like, no, I don't think so. No, I don't want to do it now. And another perfect example of how probably when it's too late, that's when I decide I don't want to do it anymore. Yeah. When it's too late.
That ship has
We've
sailed.
done this. This is it. Here we are. Good luck. But yeah, I do remember that. I remember it was not a good time. It was a bad time getting, I can't even remember getting off the plane. But I do remember standing outside the airport in Dublin and it's snowing.
It was snowing and
no one was met. And
no one met us.
We thought that our boss was going to meet us at the airport. We've never been to Dublin. You and I are 20?
We were 23?
23 with every piece of our belongings that we had
In a couple of cases.
Yeah, we'd ever owned. Just no idea where we are. We had oh my God, this is before smartphones.
Yep. So we had printed out a map, I think.
Yes.
Printed out the map,
No
printed out
Uber.
the address. So we jumped in a taxi
Yep.
and said we need to go here.
Take me here.
To a place that we'd never seen because Google Maps was not
Google
doing
Maps
its thing.
No, not a thing.
So
How would we have gotten Google Maps? We didn't have smartphones. We had a little Nokia.
Our phones didn't work because we didn't have SIM cards or anything.
SIM cards or anything. We had
We had
no
sent
cash.
an email to our employer
Yep.
saying that we would be arriving on
This
that
is
day.
our time. And it turns out he'd sent an email when we were in the air saying, oh, sorry, I've got clients at that time. Just take a taxi. And we were like, wait, what? And like we only got that email
After like day 2 or something when we
like
logged
once
in.
we got our computers hooked up to the internet, and then we were like, oh, well, thanks for that.
So we turned up.
That was really a sign
with
of things
all
to
of
come,
our
wasn't
stuff.
it?
Oh my God.
Should have known
We
that.
we turned up with all of our things at the only address we had, which was the practice.
Yes.
Turns out he lived upstairs from that, which is
Yes.
fantastic. But we arrived at this gorgeous townhouse in Dublin.
Yeah, it was stunning.
Like he had done all of the renovation himself, like literally done the plasterwork himself.
Yeah.
The love that he put into that
Look,
building
that building was stunning.
was amazing.
But we turn up, right? We turn up to this building and we literally open the door and there's nobody there.
No.
There was literally like nobody there. And we're like, hello, hi. I think we stood in that foyer.
Good 5 or 10 minutes.
Yeah, 15,
It
20
was-
minutes of just being like, ah. And like, again, phones don't work. Can't call him. No emails.
And we didn't know that he lived upstairs
We
at the
didn't
time.
know that he lived upstairs. So we're just in this
In a building.
office. So no one's met us at the airport. No, like literally we have moved there and we are children. We are babies. This is our first job, well, my first job. And yeah, I think 20 minutes later.
Oh, and he was in charge of our accommodation. He had a couple of apartments and we were moving into one of his apartments.
Of course, because we had no accommodation, no phones, no cash on us, no euros.
Everything was hinging on him.
Everything was hinging on this guy because he said, yeah, come and I'll take care of you. And we get there
And he's nowhere to be
and
seen.
there's no one. We're just like, So eventually his girlfriend comes downstairs and she's like, oh,
Who are you? What are
who
you
are
doing
you
here?
guys? Like, what are you doing here? And we're like, so we had to explain the whole thing. Hi, Leandra, Jacob. She's like, she's like, well, yeah, he's just popped down to the shops, like just, I guess, sit in the waiting room. So we sat in this waiting room with nobody there, waiting until he turns up. And he turns up all flustered and he's like,
He was always like a tornado.
He was.
Entering a building or a room, it was just like a storm was hit.
And it turns out our accommodation
Wasn't ready.
was not ready. Oh, yeah, it won't be ready for a couple of weeks. No, yes, actually, hang on. Oh, no, I remembered. Oh, my God, yes, actually, God, it's fun to go back and reminisce. So he did have accommodation for us, but it turns out the people who were living in it weren't leaving until like March. And he's like, yeah, the one I've got ready that I wanted you to have because it's got bedrooms and stuff, that's not ready
right.
until March. And we're like, or April or something ridiculous. And we're like, wait, what? And then he's like, I do have another one, but it needs some work done on it. So let me I'm just going to, it's got a
Just
leak.
gotta fix it up.
So I just got to fix that up for a bit. So when that's ready, you can have that. And he's like, but tonight I've got you a hostel. Like I've got you a room in a hostel tonight. And then
about
you
that.
can move in with my friend and he's just had someone move out. So he's got a room free in his house. So his housemate's just moved out. So you can go live with him until I've had time to fix up this apartment. And then you can move in there. And then in March or April or whenever those tenants decide to leave, then you can have the apartment that I actually said you could have.
Yes, I forgot about the hostel. I
spent the first
remember
night-
staying with the plumber.
Yeah, no,
His
well,
mate.
his mate, the plumber. No, first of all, we stayed that first night in a hostel. And after I had a, couple of hour long panic attack, like a 4 or 5 hour long panic attack. And then
Things were off to a great start.
figured our way through busy, freezing Dublin to be greeted by no one. And then we're in this hostel. Yeah, that was... I think I cried that whole night as well. And we got there and it was like bunk beds. It was 2 bunk beds. At least it was a private room. He got us a private room. But yeah, we
Oh my God.
stayed in that hostel and then we went and had Chinese food. I just cried into our Chinese food. And then I remember we were both on the bottom bunk with me sobbing all night. Like, what the fuck have we done? Yeah. And then the next day we moved. He did, to be fair, he did put us in his car and take us to his friends.
Yes.
And then we lived in a share house with the weirdest guy.
Weirdest
He
plumber
was
in the
like
world.
in his 50s. He was a weird...
I actually don't think he was. I think that was all alcohol and cigarettes that made him seem like that. And the fact that we were kids.
I swear that he was probably only 35.
He was 35. Yeah.
And we're like, oh my God, this man, this old man that we now live with. Oh God.
Yeah. We're older than he was at the time.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Well, it's a good thing we look after ourselves, though, because I swear to God, he was like...
An
50
example of
years
what
old.
not to do.
Anyway, that was weird. And then, yeah, we lived with him. And then it turns out all he was doing was
he
painting
would do
over the mold in our apartment.
in the apartment. Which we did eventually move into. But,
we did. And then, we did.
It was designed for Australian, like, summers in Bondi.
I have never...
Big windows, high ceilings, wide open space. Like, it was a studio apartment, but it was huge.
I have never...
With a tiny space heater in the middle of winter.
I have never, ever, ever been that cold in my entire life.
Yes. We had jumpers and cardigans and scarves under 2 or 3 doonas and blankets to try and keep warm to sleep.
We were frozen. And I even remember coming home for lunch, right? Living in this apartment, coming home for lunch and putting the oven on so that
with the door open.
Yeah, so we could heat and we could heat our lunch
over there.
And then we'd open the door and put the chairs by the oven and sit by the oven so we could eat our lunch and not freeze.
Yes.
That was the absolute coldest place I have ever lived in. I remember filling the bathtub up and it would get cold. Even if you put the hottest boiling water in it, it would cool as you were filling it because it was so cold. It was freezing. Yep. I remember that's where we lived, and he charged us
ludicrous amounts.
Yeah, like more than what we pay now in rent. Like just so much. We used to pay so much rent for that, and it was the worst apartment I have ever lived in. But I mean, that's...
Just trying to think if that's true. I think it might be.
Yeah, it was really expensive. I remember.
Yeah, we've been in a few places, but yeah, that was
one of the
was the worst.
For what it was, and I think, and for what I mean, you start to see. I mean, next episode will be that story, but you can start to
the full island story.
You can start to see.
Oh my God.
What it might have been like. I mean, really, but we were kids, we were babies, and yeah, so.
Throwing ourselves in the deep end, right? But this is kind of our MO. Like, we don't like the guardrails when we go 10-pin bowling. Well, I don't.
Don't be ridiculous.
But not in life.
I love the guardrails in
Like,
bowling.
we will throw ourselves in the deep end and figure it out.
Yeah, I mean...
Can make for some interesting stories, especially when we look back on it. But also teaches you some lessons along the way.
Yeah, I have not thought about Dublin and that time for a little while, actually. But yeah, just remembering what it started out like, I'm like...
We really should have picked up on that a little earlier. Ever the optimist.
I know, I'm just trying to think of like,
when did it turn?
When did it turn?
Did it?
When was the point when we should have said, nah, let's not do this?
All right. So...
Apparently for me, it was on the plane on the way there, so...
We only stayed there for 9 months.
Yeah.
I think that's the next episode, but
no,
what a hell of a 9 months.
Yeah, no, I think the next episode is talking about our time in Dublin. Although that might need to be 2 episodes because, Jesus, that's a story, isn't it?
It is.
Oh, it's a story.
Until next time. Thanks for listening or watching. Make sure you subscribe, and I'd love it if you left a review. Any links that we might have mentioned through the show are right here in the show notes. Now, as always, be open to change. It's coming for you anyway. Face your fears instead of suppressing them. And finally, say yes to more things than you say no to. Now, if you want to jump across on Instagram, that's where you'll find out all the ways that you can work with me.